What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix for Week 13 of the 2021 CFL season. I'm Ryan Coop here with your first of two depth chart videos for this week's games. We've got a doubleheader Friday night, doubleheader Saturday. So I'll cover the Friday night games in this one, and the Saturday ones I'll have a depth chart update later today once the teams release their lineups for the week. If you missed it, go back, check out. I had positional previews for every single position, going through the options available there. Those are out on the channel already. Go back, check those out, and use those as well to set your lineups for week number 13. As I mentioned, double header tonight on Friday, and a good old Friday night football doubleheader. And it kicks off with the Calgary Stampeders and the Ottawa Red Blacks in Ottawa. Now let's look at Calgary's depth chart here first. Notable for Calgary, they finally seem to have their full starting receiver group back in the lineup all at the same time. Josh Huff returns after missing the last game, and so they'll be rolling with the starting crew of Huff, Markeith Amples, Kamara Jordan, Richie Sindani, and Herji Mayala. First time in a really long time we've seen them all in the starting lineup together. Bo Levi Mitchell is your starting quarterback, of course. Kadeem Carey, the starting running back. Ante Milanovic Litre, the backup at that position. At receiver, there are, Calgary's one of those teams that always spreads the ball around so much and even uses the backup receivers a little bit. Your backups this week, Sean Bain will be the backup to Josh Huff. Colton Hunchak listed behind Richie Sindani, and Tyson Middlemost listed behind Herji Mayala, where he normally is. They don't list the return man on the depth chart, unfortunately, for Calgary. I have a pretty good hunch it's going to be Sean Bain. He returned most of the kicks last week for them. You know, some of the other guys that have handled return duties this year, Malik Henry, not on the active roster. Nick Hawley, not on the active roster. So I could see Bain getting that job, considering he is the one that stays as a backup this week for Calgary. But it's hard to be guaranteed of that when they do not list it on the depth chart. On the defensive side of the ball, new re-addition Trey Roberson makes his first start at quarterback. Since rejoining the team. Of course, he played with the Stampeders in 2019, was one of, if not the best defensive backs in the CFL, and ended up going off to the NFL, and now he's back in Calgary and will be playing his first game. So nice big boost in the defensive backfield for the Stampeders there, as they take on the Ottawa Red Blacks. Moving on to Ottawa's depth chart, offensively looks to be the exact same as we saw last week. Caleb Evans listed as the starting quarterback, with Devlin Hodges the backup. I would expect the same thing the rest of the way that we saw last week. Evans gets half the game, Hodges gets half the game. So from a fantasy perspective, if you're looking for a cheap play, I don't know if either of these guys is the way to go, because they may only be playing half the game. At running back, DeLance Turner gets the start once again. Third straight game for him, I believe. Brendan Galanders is his backup. At receiver, your starters are RJ Harris, Ryan Davis, Anthony Coombs, Kenny Stafford, and Nate Bahar. Michael Klukas, a backup behind Bahar. And Terry Williams, a backup behind Ryan Davis. And Williams will also be handling return duties. Still no Devontae Dedmon for Ottawa. And on the defensive side of the ball, they will be without Sherrod Baltimore this week, who is kind of a mainstay, huge presence in that defensive backfield. So offensively, pretty much the same as last week for Ottawa. Nothing too notable to change-wise there. Getting into the second game of Friday night, you got the Hamilton Tiger Cats in Edmonton, I believe, to face the Elks. Let's start with Hamilton's side of things. The Ticats will be without Braylon Addison at wide receiver, as he is back on the injured list. So taking his spot in the starting rotation will be David Ungerer III, who has started in that spot a couple of times throughout the year. Hasn't really produced a ton from a fantasy perspective, but he will be in the starting lineup. At quarterback, Jeremiah Mazzoli gets the start once again. Dane Evans is the backup. This is no surprise. Mazzoli was on fire last week, had a fantastic game. 2 games in a row. He's been playing really well, and why fix what ain't broke, is what I say. At running back, the depth chart changes at running back every week for Hamilton. Don Jackson is listed as the starter. Sean Thomas Erlington listed as his backup. Jackson Bennett as the 3rd string. Malik Irons not on the roster this week. I think he might have left the previous game with an injury, but I wouldn't put a whole ton of stock in the ordering of these running backs on the roster, because if you do that, more times than not this year, I feel like you've gotten burned. Don Jackson may take the bulk of the carries, but if Sean Thomas Erlington is healthy, you have to expect he's going to get some of them as well. Maybe they throw Bennett in for a couple of plays. So I would maybe stay away from the Ticats run game here. I don't think there's one guy that's going to dominate you a fantasy performance. At receiver, I mentioned no Braylon Addison, so the lineup is as follows: Stephen Dunbar Jr., Jalen Acklin, Brandon Banks, Tim White, and David Unger III. In the return game, Frankie Williams is still out of the lineup, so Brandon Banks will be handling main return duties there. Unger III will be a backup at that slot as well. On the defensive side of the ball, pretty much the same lineup that we typically see for them. Nothing really changing from the week before there for the Ticats. That stands out to me. And their matchup this week, the Edmonton Elks did just bring in a fancy new quarterback by the name of Nick Arbuckle, but he does need to go through the quarantine protocols and is not ready to join his new team quite yet. So Taylor Cornelius gets the start. Again, for Edmonton, Dakota Prukop will be his backup at quarterback. At receiver, a bit of a shuffling here for the Elks. Jalen Tolliver has been a backup the past couple of games. He'll get a start at receiver. And Shai Ross will be the backup behind Tavon Smith. A bit of a surprise there, I feel like. I feel like Shai Ross has been one of the better receivers this year for Edmonton. We'll see if he still gets into the rotation a little bit there. But Cornelius at quarterback. Running back, same as usual. James Wilder Jr. gets the start. And then receivers, Darrell Walker, Greg Ellingson, Jalen Tolliver, Mike Jones, and Tavon Smith. 3rd string running back, Terry Williams, handling return duties for the Elks. On the defensive side of the ball, they'll be without a couple of defensive linemen that we've seen in as of late in Serezna and Costigan. But we do see new addition Antonio Simmons join the lineup on the defensive line. He is listed as a backup, but I'm sure they will work him into a couple of plays there. So those are your depth charts for the Friday night games. Again, I will have another update a bit later today once the lineups for the Saturday games are out as well. Make sure you lock in those fantasy lineups, because the first game of Friday night does kick off at 6 p.m. Central Time. So you're going to want to get those lineups in and make those decisions. And best of luck to you in week number 13. I hope you crush it. I hope we see you at the top of the leaderboard. Do all the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't. If you have any fantasy questions, put them in the comments section or tweet them at me at CooperTrooper42 on Twitter. And if you want to play CFL Fantasy alongside myself and other viewers, there is a link in the description to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix group over on the official CFL Fantasy site. You can play alongside myself and other viewers this week and every week throughout the 2021 season. As always, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.